They say learning a new skill is a journey, that it should be enjoyed, experienced, and eventually you'll end up somewhere. But why does it feel as though the artists we oh so admire make it seem like what they're doing is fiction? That reaching that level of skill is a fantasy. It feels like no matter how diligently you practice, you're not finding a direction at all, that there isn't improvement in any of your drawings. In the beginning, you've convinced yourself that you're determined to draw, to get better at this thing called art. But it hasn't really been easy, has it? It's not that you don't have the guts to climb that rocky hill of mastery. It's just that you don't have a goal in mind. It all begins when you decide to set a goal for yourself. Get better at art. You probably list down all the things you want to get good at: anatomy, perspective, value, color, composition. The overwhelm is simmering just beneath the surface, threatening to jump out and paralyze you. But you straighten up, gather your pencils, and decide that this week, you'll show up every day to work on all of those fundamentals. You go on this cycle for week after week, and then it feels like you're not moving forward at all. You haven't moved forward at all. Your work isn't exactly the work of a beginner anymore. It feels a lot more like you're an intermediate artist in 0 disciplines, rather than an advanced beginner in 1. It's like being stuck on a plateau. You've moved above for a little bit from your mediocrity, but you're also not sure whether or not you're actually moving forward in your skill. It's not your fault. Not really. You just didn't know what to look for when you're trying to figure out how to get better at art. You look at your drawings and all you really see are mistakes everywhere. Everything looks like a work in progress. Everything about your art looks like it could use some work. None of the elements look like it's actually rising from a lower skill level. I know a lot of people say that hating your art is good because it means you know you need to improve. But the real question is, do you know where to look to improve? I think that the feeling of failure doesn't come from a lack of effort, but from a lack of being able to see just how far you've actually moved forward in your skill towards that goal. I understand that a lot of people say that beginners should focus on studying as much of the fundamentals as they can, but what they didn't say was that you needed to study them one at a time. The fear that I had was that if you don't study all of them all at once, you'll never get anywhere. But here's the truth. That fear of getting nowhere shouldn't concern you as much as the actual state of being paralyzed and not moving forward in your skill at all. Essentially, I followed the advice that said, if you just study all of your fundamentals, eventually, after 10 years, everything will magically come together. But this is obviously completely false. Your skill in art is improved over time by adding complexity little by little. Let me repeat that. Your skill in art is improved over time by adding complexity little by little. When you try to lift all of your fundamentals from a lower skill level to a higher skill level simultaneously, you won't see progress in any of them. You're essentially just keeping your skill level the same across the board. Basically, you're diluting your focus and hindering your progress. Instead of achieving success in one area and moving forward, you're stuck in several others and you're paralyzed. Creativity is thought to be this free-flowing and limitless thing, but oftentimes, I believe, and I've found time and time again, that creativity thrives on limitation. And the same goes for your art practice. Your progress will only happen if you have a clear trajectory in mind, filtering out everything that's getting in the way of achieving that goal. This is why being intentional and limiting what you want to study is not just helpful, it's crucial. It's the first step to finally achieving a solid footing and seeing visible improvement in your drawings. I hate to break it to you, but you have to trade the crippling anxiety of limitless options to actually see progress in your skill. The first step is scary, but you have to choose one thing to study, one at a time. In my case, after years of being a little lost, actually a little bit more than lost, I figured out I couldn't level up all of my fundamentals all at once. It was physically impossible. I took a step back and assessed what I was naturally interested in. When I looked at my old drawings, I saw they all had one common subject matter: figures. I simplified my vast curriculum down to one subject: figure drawing. You can do this too. What are you naturally drawn to? Landscape? Architecture? Animals? Finding that clarity on one specific subject matter gave me a crystal clear trajectory of where I wanted to go, and more importantly, what steps I had to take to get there. Step 2. Find the consistent weak points, or look through a filter. I found that over the years, one of the most valuable skills you can have as an artist studying at home is your ability to assess your own work. Oftentimes, beginner artists easily fall into the habit of simply calling their work bad art, and they call that criticism, and I've done this before, but this is ineffective, and honestly, that's just insulting your efforts. Instead, you use your subject matter limitation, the one we used in step 1, as a filter. Ask yourself, what is the one specific area in almost all of your drawings that repeatedly stick out to you as a mistake? In my figure drawings, I used to struggle so much with stiff poses. I knew I also had proportion issues, but I needed a starting point. So I practiced gesture drawing. This is because I filtered out what I needed to practice immediately from what can be remedied later. Step 3. Look for your sources. Once you have your singular target, in my case that was gesture drawing, you do your quote-unquote resource research, which is just a fancy term for looking up how to improve that one specific thing online. You need to find resources that not only tell you what to do, but also show you the process. Look up the specific skill you want to improve on YouTube, read articles, or invest in a course. Listen to what those sources say and pay attention to how they handle their pencil or how they handle their tools. If you're studying gesture like I did, look at how Mike Matesi uses his force lines, or how Proko breaks down the line of action, or how Watts Atelier uses the Riley method. The goal here is not just consumption, but adoption. By all means, take note. At this stage in your art journey, you're deliberately choosing techniques to integrate into the muscle memory of your own hand. With that being said, do approach this advice with being able to discern good teachers from teachers that you might not want to listen to too much. It's an entire topic in and of itself, but I usually ask myself these questions before I adopt a certain technique from an art instructor. Does what they're teaching align with my own goals to achieve proficiency in this skill or fundamental? Are they the best that can teach me this, and have they taught this before and succeeded? And finally, is what they're teaching, their methods, something I can apply to my practice right now? Step 4. Implement and focus. Okay, now you implement what they're teaching into your daily art practice. Keep in mind, this isn't about being busy. It's about being focused and deliberate with what you're practicing. Did you catch that? This isn't about being busy. It's about being focused and deliberate with what you're practicing. Sharpen the skill in that one weak point first before moving on to the next. For example, your goal is figure drawing. Your weak point is stiff poses, and your resource is Mike Matesi's force technique. Your practice this week is 30 seconds to 1 minute gesture drawings, focusing only on finding the big swooping line of action. You ignore rendering, value, and precise anatomy for now. In this way, you not only save yourself from the overwhelm of practicing so much all at once, but you're also recognizing the smallest efforts turning into small improvements. Step 5. The Boredom Rule. Now I think you're wondering, but when do I know when to move forward from this specific study? When can I stop focusing on this weak point? The answer is when you get bored. In my experience, my boredom tells me I have nothing left to learn to remedy that specific weak point. There's a certain kind of thrill to not knowing something and striving to learn it, and when I reach that point of boredom, that's essentially when I know I have to move forward to the next thing to study. It's not that I've learned everything and mastered that fundamental, it's just a sign that I've reached the limits of my skill in that current moment to hone that fundamental. You have reached your limit in fixing that consistent flaw, and your brain is ready to tackle the next most obvious mistake. When you gain clarity on where you want to go in your art practice, you finally begin to see that you never needed to climb that impossible mountain of mastery. You just had to choose a single path that led you to the top.